we started filling it up. 50 chairs. How long did that take? But it got to where we hadn't put out more chairs down the little aisle that was there.
Something about Pastor Bob Joyce's mansion didn't sit right with the people who saw it up close. The property looked nothing like what many expected from a small-town pastor. And that discovery quickly opened the door to even bigger mysteries. As curious visitors and online investigators looked deeper, they uncovered details that only fueled more speculation instead of providing answers. What was really hidden behind those gates? And why has this property become one of the internet's most talked about mysteries? Let's take a closer look. What was really hidden behind Bob Joyce's gates? The mystery surrounding Pastor Bob Joyce took an unexpected turn when videos of his private property began spreading across social media. Curious visitors traveling to Benton, Arkansas, captured glimpses of an estate that looked far more like the home of a wealthy celebrity than the residence of a small-town pastor. With its sprawling grounds, secluded setting, and impressive size, the property immediately caught people's attention and sparked one question: how had a local preacher acquired something so extraordinary? On its own, owning a large home would not have been enough to fuel widespread speculation. But many people pointed out that Bob Joyce was not a nationally known televangelist with television networks, best-selling books, or a ministry generating millions of dollars. Instead, he led Household of Faith, a congregation that began around 2010 with only a handful of people gathering in his living room for worship. Over the years, the church steadily expanded. By 2014, the growing congregation had moved into a rented building on Salem Road with space for roughly 40 attendees. In 2019, another move brought them to Salt Creek Road, where the sanctuary could accommodate around 100 people. Then, in June 2024, Joyce purchased a new 9-acre property on Samples Road, featuring a large metal structure originally built as a horse barn. After extensive renovations, the building became a church sanctuary capable of seating more than 250 worshipers, with parking for approximately 75 vehicles. The congregation officially held its first service there on August 31, 2025. The church's steady growth wasn't what raised eyebrows. It was the financial picture surrounding it. Household of Faith openly described its members as ordinary working people, retirees, and individuals living on fixed incomes. The ministry operated without paid staff, a gift shop, or the large fundraising operations commonly associated with high-profile churches. Meanwhile, estimates of Bob Joyce's personal wealth varied widely, ranging from around $600,000 to as much as $3 million. Yet none of those figures could be independently verified. For many observers, the numbers simply didn't seem to fit the lifestyle they believed they were seeing. Interest intensified in April 2025 when Gregory Pritchard visited Benton with his wife and son to see the church for himself. Although severe storms and power outages affected the area during their trip, Pritchard later shared his experience in a YouTube interview, describing the secluded property, the contrast between the modest church and the surrounding estate, and a local community that appeared fiercely protective of its pastor's privacy. Because he had no obvious connection to either side of the debate, many viewers considered his observations among the most balanced first-hand accounts available. Yet the estate itself was only the beginning. As online researchers shifted their attention away from the property and toward the man who owned it, they uncovered inconsistencies that transformed a simple question about wealth into a much larger mystery about identity. The identity that refuses to make sense. As interest in Bob Joyce's property continued to grow, many online researchers shifted their focus to something they believed was even more puzzling. Instead of asking how he lived, they began asking who he really was. What seemed like a straightforward biography quickly became surprisingly difficult to verify, and every new search appeared to uncover another inconsistency. According to the official information published on his website, his full name is Robert Wayne Joyce, born on June 19, 1952. The biography states that he married his wife, Willena, in 1975, became an ordained pastor in 1981, and later completed a degree at Dallas Baptist University. While those details outlined the major milestones of his life, many people felt they left significant gaps. There was very little publicly available information about his childhood, his early years, or the path that eventually led him to ministry and music. As more websites attempted to profile him, the confusion only deepened. Several online biographies listed completely different birth years, placing his birth in 1960s rather than 1952. One profile even claimed he was born on July 11, 1966, in St. John, Canada, identified his father as Patrick Joseph, and described him as a Canadian musician with formal musical training. Those details painted the picture of an entirely different individual, leaving readers to wonder whether the information had simply been mixed together or whether something else had gone wrong. Another source added even more uncertainty. A profile on Sermon Central featured a pastor named Bob Joyce, whose biography listed a wife named Patty, a marriage dating back to 1971, and a son named Kevin. None of those details matched the Bob Joyce from Benton, Arkansas. While it was entirely possible that the profile belonged to a different pastor with the same name, it highlighted how easily conflicting information could spread online, making it increasingly difficult to separate verified facts from mistaken identities. Even so, the inconsistencies alone were not enough to prove anything unusual. Similar names, outdated websites, and automated data collection often create errors that spread across the internet. But for many people following the story, the unanswered questions surrounding Bob Joyce's background continued to fuel speculation rather than settle it. Then, attention shifted to someone whose history was much easier to trace. Unlike the conflicting records surrounding Bob Joyce, the public timeline of his wife, Willena, appeared far more consistent. And as people compared her documented past with one of Bob Joyce's own sermons, they stumbled onto a detail that would become one of the most debated pieces of the entire mystery. The Willena mystery nobody could explain. As online investigators searched for answers about Bob Joyce's past, they eventually turned their attention to someone who had been by his side for decades. Unlike the conflicting information surrounding Bob Joyce himself, records connected to his wife, Willena Marie Van Hemert Joyce, appeared much easier to verify. But instead of clearing up the mystery, they introduced an entirely new set of questions. Public records identify Willena as having been born on June 8, 1940, in Young, Texas. Based on Bob Joyce's official birth year of 1952, she is 12 years older than him. While some people noticed the age difference, it was never the main focus of the online discussion. What truly captured people's attention was an unexpected connection involving Germany. The controversy grew after viewers revisited one of Bob Joyce's sermons in which he spoke about serving in the United States Army in Germany and mentioned knowing Willena during that period. On its own, the comment may not have attracted much attention. However, many people immediately compared it with the well-documented military service of Elvis Presley, who was stationed at Ray Barracks in Friedberg, Germany, from 1958 to 1960. That timeline quickly became the center of online debate. If Willena was born in 1940, she would have been around 18 or 19 years old during Elvis's deployment in Germany. But if Bob Joyce's published birth year of 1952 were accurate, he would have been only a young child during those same years. For critics, that apparent contradiction raised an obvious question. How could someone born in 1952 describe experiences that seemed connected to a completely different period? Supporters offered various explanations, suggesting the sermon may have been misunderstood or that listeners had interpreted his words too literally. Others believed the inconsistency deserved closer examination. The discussion intensified because the statement came directly from Bob Joyce himself during one of his own church services, rather than from an outside source or internet rumor. At one point, a widely shared photograph claimed to show a young Willena alongside Elvis Presley. Independent fact-checkers later determined that the woman in the image was actually Claudia Stefaniak Mansfield, not Willena, effectively dismissing that piece of supposed evidence. Yet, the sermon itself remained the subject of ongoing debate because it continued circulating online exactly as it had originally been delivered. Whether people viewed those remarks as innocent, misunderstood, or intentionally vague, they became another reason the mystery continued to grow. Before long, many followers stopped listening to Bob Joyce's sermons simply for their religious message. Instead, they began searching every word for hidden meaning, convinced that the answers they wanted had been there all along. Did Bob Joyce know exactly what he was doing? As the speculation surrounding Bob Joyce continued to grow, his weekly sermons became more than ordinary church services for many viewers. Instead of simply listening to the biblical message, countless followers began analyzing every sentence, convinced that hidden clues were woven into his words. Whether that belief was justified or not, it transformed each sermon into another chapter of an unfolding mystery. One moment, in particular, became a favorite among those who believed Joyce was subtly revealing more than he admitted. During a sermon, he recalled learning to play music on a $10 guitar as a boy. To most listeners, it sounded like a simple personal memory. But to others, the story closely echoed the well-known account of Elvis Presley's first guitar, purchased with great sacrifice by his parents. Because the similarities were so striking, many people interpreted the remark as another indirect reference, even though Joyce never mentioned Elvis by name. That pattern seemed to repeat itself. Throughout different sermons, Joyce frequently spoke about fame, temptation, the dangers of success, and the heavy burdens that often come with public recognition. His messages remained rooted in Christian teaching, yet some viewers felt the way he described those struggles sounded unusually personal. Supporters saw a pastor sharing life lessons through experience. Critics believed he was intentionally leaving breadcrumbs for his audience to follow. Without a direct confirmation or denial, both interpretations continued to thrive. The fascination surrounding Bob Joyce eventually expanded beyond church walls. In 2024, he appeared at George Magazine Live in Hot Springs, Arkansas, an event organized by Gene Ho, former campaign photographer for Donald Trump. The modern version of George Magazine had become known for attracting speakers and attendees interested in political movements and high-profile conspiracy theories. Because of that reputation, Joyce's appearance drew even more attention from people who were already convinced there was something unusual about his story. He returned to the event in 2025, delivering a Sunday sermon before hundreds of attendees inside Bank OZK Arena. Tickets ranged from $145 to $475, reflecting the growing interest surrounding both the event and Joyce himself. Although his church published a disclaimer explaining that the conference featured many viewpoints not necessarily aligned with its own beliefs, the public conversation continued to intensify. By this point, Bob Joyce had become far more than a local pastor in the eyes of the internet. Every public appearance generated new theories, every sermon inspired fresh speculation, and every unanswered question attracted even more attention. But while millions debated what his words really meant, another problem was quietly developing behind the scenes. Before long, strangers would begin using Bob Joyce's name for something far more harmful than internet speculation. The dangerous side of the Bob Joyce phenomenon. As the mysteries surrounding Bob Joyce reached millions of people online, it created an opportunity that had little to do with faith or curiosity. Behind the endless theories and viral videos, scammers began exploiting the growing fascination for their own financial gain, turning a popular internet mystery into a sophisticated fraud operation. By 2026, the homepage of bobjoyce.org featured a series of highly visible warnings cautioning visitors about impersonators. The church made it clear that Bob Joyce did not send private messages, communicate through direct messaging platforms, or request money through gift cards, Apple Pay, Cash App, cryptocurrency, or similar payment methods. Those notices weren't posted as a precaution alone. They were a response to a growing wave of scams targeting people who believed they were speaking directly with the pastor. Fake accounts quickly appeared across Facebook, Telegram, TikTok, Rumble, Truth Social, X, WhatsApp, and other platforms, often using Bob Joyce's photos, videos, and sermon clips to appear convincing. Some attracted thousands of followers before asking supporters for financial assistance or personal information. As artificial intelligence became more advanced, the situation became even more alarming. Manipulated videos designed to imitate Bob Joyce's voice and appearance circulated online, making it increasingly difficult for viewers to distinguish authentic content from fabricated material. The church eventually acknowledged the existence of these AI-generated videos in an effort to warn its audience. Many of the victims were longtime Elvis Presley fans or older individuals who had developed an emotional connection to Bob Joyce through his sermons and music. Scammers took advantage of that trust, building relationships over time before requesting money. For those affected, the financial losses were only part of the damage. Many also felt deeply betrayed after realizing they had been communicating with someone pretending to be a person they admired. The rise of these scams also reignited criticism surrounding the mystery itself. Some argued that the ongoing speculation made it easier for impersonators to deceive vulnerable people, while others insisted Bob Joyce had never encouraged fraudulent activity and had repeatedly warned followers through his official website. Regardless of where people stood, one fact was difficult to ignore. The mystery had grown far beyond online debates and had begun affecting real lives. Yet, even as fraud became one of the darkest chapters of the story, it wasn't the final mystery drawing attention. For many believers, the biggest unanswered questions still centered on a place that has fascinated Elvis fans for decades. And somehow, those questions would once again lead back to Bob Joyce. The one question Bob Joyce still won't answer. Long before Bob Joyce became the center of endless internet speculation, one place had already become a symbol of mystery for Elvis Presley fans around the world: Graceland. While millions of visitors have toured the famous Memphis estate since it opened to the public in 1982, one area has remained almost completely off-limits. The second floor, where Elvis spent much of his private life, has stayed closed to nearly everyone outside the Presley family ever since his death in 1977. That single detail has fueled decades of curiosity, and eventually, Bob Joyce became part of that story. Over the years, only a handful of people have ever described what lies beyond the sealed staircase. During his marriage to Lisa Marie Presley, Nicolas Cage was allowed upstairs and later recalled seeing Elvis's bedroom, including a fiber optic ceiling that created the illusion of a night sky. In another rare visit, Oprah Winfrey received a private tour of the second floor in 2024 from Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter and the sole trustee of Graceland, following Lisa Marie Presley's passing in 2023. These rare glimpses only reinforced the fascination surrounding the areas that remain hidden from the public. As expected, conspiracy theories quickly filled the gaps left by limited access. Some viral videos claimed Bob Joyce had secretly been living inside Graceland's sealed second floor. Others insisted he regularly visited the estate in private, particularly during the holidays, to reunite with family members. None of these stories were supported by verifiable evidence, yet they spread rapidly across social media, collecting millions of views from audiences eager to believe there was still one final secret waiting to be uncovered. Part of the speculation also centered on Riley Keough, after reports surfaced about legal disputes involving control of Graceland following Lisa Marie Presley's death. Rumors circulated online claiming locks had been changed upstairs to hide sensitive information, although Graceland publicly denied those claims. Even so, for many believers, the lack of access simply encouraged more theories rather than ending them. But despite every rumor, every viral video, and every supposed discovery, one question continued to overshadow them all. If Bob Joyce truly wanted to put the speculation to rest, why not settle it through DNA testing? Today, DNA analysis is widely accessible and capable of confirming biological identity with remarkable accuracy. Yet Bob Joyce has never publicly taken a DNA test to address the Elvis theory, nor has his ministry issued an official statement directly responding to that specific question. In 2026, an article from DH Music examined online claims that secret DNA evidence already existed and concluded that no credible forensic laboratory, court, medical authority, or major news organization had verified such evidence. The report also explained that any legitimate comparison would require authenticated biological samples, documented chain of custody, and independent scientific analysis, none of which have ever been presented publicly. That absence of evidence has allowed the mystery to survive. Supporters continue believing there is more to the story, while skeptics argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Without a verified DNA comparison, neither side has received the definitive answer they have been waiting for. Whether Bob Joyce chooses to address the speculation or continue ignoring it remains entirely his decision. But perhaps that's the reason this story refuses to disappear. It isn't simply about a mansion, a sermon, or even the enduring legend of Elvis Presley. It's about a question that has never been answered in a way everyone can accept. And sometimes, the greatest mysteries aren't kept alive by what people know, but by what they can never prove. So what do you think? Is there more to Bob Joyce's story than meets the eye? Or has the internet simply turned unanswered questions into a lasting mystery? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to watch our next video.